Hello, everybody. Kia ora, friends, and welcome back to the Brickanista Broadcast Network. I'm Naomi, and
Yeah.
I always
I'm
get
Remy.
the
Still?
finger pointing around. That's Remy.
Yeah. Okay.
And welcome back to What, When, Why Wednesdays here on the Brickanista Broadcast Network. And it's been amazing. We've gone through 8 weeks now of reviewing this amazing series. And I know that when we started, in fact, our guests probably don't know this, who are in the green room, but when we started this, part of it was because Lego Masters US had been postponed.
Yes.
We had started What, When, Why Wednesdays with the anticipation that we were going to start reviewing Lego Masters Season 3 US, or I should say North America now. And then when they pushed it to September, Remy and I were talking. I said, well, you know what? I have a few friends in New Zealand.
Yeah, Naomi was like, "Oh yeah, I know like everybody in New Zealand."
I don't know everybody in New Zealand, but
Yeah.
I said, I've been a member of a couple Toastmasters clubs since 2015, I think. Yeah, so the last 7 years. And I was able to recruit several of them. We've seen them over the last several weeks. Yeah. And it's amazing that we just started with this idea because we had some time. We said, let's do Lego Masters New Zealand. It has been so much fun, and we've learned so much. And today we have two special guests. Really, really excited about this.
So first of all, welcome guest, Lena. Welcome Spot the Magic Ninja.
Oh, yeah. We should welcome people in the chat. So, yeah. Hey, Lena. How's it going, Spot? In fact, Spot's going to be a special guest in October. We've already booked him for a spooky stream. Yeah.
Did we? Okay.
Well,
that's cool.
It was before we started What, When, Why Wednesdays. It was oh no, wait a minute. What, you were there? It was Star Wars. Remember when we showed up in cosplay? You were there. We booked it
I was
when
there
he
for
was
that.
on the air. Yeah.
But,
so Spot, remember we had to bring in a couple people because our Star Wars guest didn't arrive. So we were saying, who knows Star Wars? So we brought in Spot and we brought in Debo. And then Spot said, yeah, he would love to be on the show as a guest. And I said, okay, let's book it. And we decided, since we've had so much fun doing cosplay, that why don't we just do a Halloween episode? So you were there. You don't remember
I
this.
may have been there. I don't remember any of this. Naomi handles all the scheduling. So I don't. But I'd take you at your word. I believe you. So that's the thing that's going to happen.
And for those of you wondering about the magic behind the scenes, when we prepare for this, yes, I do go out and recruit the guests. And then Remy does all the heavy lifting when it comes to the visuals, which he does an amazing job. And I wanted to just mention, this is a fourth Wednesday of the month, so that means I have to leave early, which is why this is great, because I recruited one of my Toastmaster friends and part of the Auckland Advanced Toastmasters Club, and help me welcome to the stream, Rob Wightman. Hey, Rob. Good to have you here.
Yes, welcome.
And Rob and I know each other probably, I think, since 2000, I want to say 14, because that was my first trip to New Zealand, and it was at Bay of Islands in Paihia. I think you were there, right, at that convention?
Yes, I was the district governor.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun, and I really fell in love with the country. And speaking of falling in love with the country, Rob has been, instead of a Lego master, he's been a master mariner, and with I think the Merchant Marines of the UK many years ago. And in 1962, he fell in love with New Zealand, and ever since, right? And then you met your wife in New Zealand, and now he's been there since 2002. And I'm really, really thankful that you agreed to be on the show. And he's a polished speaker, so don't worry. He'll be able to give us some really eloquent discussions about what we're going to talk about with the episode. but he did forewarn me, and he said, I don't know a lot about Lego. It's like, that's okay. we have people who can talk about Lego. Rob's role here is to talk about the Kiwi influence. And we've had a couple of instances of that when we had other guests on the show. And really, really happy to have you here, Rob. So welcome.
Thank you.
And then our other very special guest, all the way from New Zealand as well, because he's there, and from Canada too. Please help me welcome Robin Saber. And he's got his own brick-built Kiwi.
Yes, yeah, that's so cute.
Have you named the Kiwi?
No, we haven't got a name for him, but still cute.
He's adorable.
Yeah,
I actually had a Kiwi run across my path when I went to Zealandia in Wellington, because they have a sanctuary there. And it's amazing, just especially if you go at night. That's when all the creatures come out. Very, very cool.
We went down to Stewart Island, and it's almost an untouched paradise of Kiwi wildlife, flora, and fauna. And
it must have been really cold, tour.
And was that?
It must be cold down there right now.
It was cold. It was definitely cold, but it was worth it. We just bundled up and we went Kiwi spotting. And we spotted 4 Kiwis that night, and they were right at our feet, and it was incredible. Really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But yeah, I can almost wave at Rob out the window. I'm in downtown Auckland, and Rob is just across the Waitemata Harbor. And we probably could see each other if we knew where to look.
You could meet each other for dinner after the show.
Indeed, debrief.
And it's funny because this is What, When, Why Wednesdays, but it's Thursday right now. They're coming from the future. The future.
It's true.
The future.
We are in the past here in the U.S. Unfortunately,
future looks good here. It's good.
That's good.
And I know Robin because I've met Robin at BrickCon a couple of years ago when it was face-to-face before we went virtual. And then we have been members of Sort Lug on a regular basis. We hang out, sort our Lego, and just chit-chat, with a bunch of people from around the world. And when we were thinking about guests, I had mentioned to Remy, I said, I think Robin remembers me.
Yeah, we made our pie in the sky list of everyone we would want to interview, and okay, well, these are the people that will never come on the show, and then we'll, and so thank you very much for being here.
And, no, not and at all. Robin, I continue to be all about the community. Even here, I've dialed right into the community here, and contestants even. I will talk about that, but I've stayed in touch with the contestants. And it's been great. It's a very, very thriving AFOL community here.
And just Kiwis are just so nice. Everybody in New Zealand has always been so gracious to North Americans. And I'm very grateful to have my Kiwi family, my whānau, who are down there. And for those of you who don't know about Robin, because not everybody has seen Lego Masters New Zealand, he is the judge of all of the builds every week. And he is the very first Lego certified professional in the world. In the world in 2004. Yeah. And it's really an honor to have you here on the show. And he's also been very involved in the Lego Ambassador Network, and from the very beginning. And it's just amazing to see your journey. And I imagine if I could just ask the question about when they decided to have Lego Masters New Zealand and they reached out to you, who reached out to you? And I imagine your very first response was, sign me up. Right?
Well, it's kind of interesting because the way Lego Masters works is there's kind of a bid that goes out for a broadcaster to essentially own the rights of it. And so TVNZ2, TV New Zealand 2 here won the rights for the show, and then they farm it out to production companies. So my first contact was actually from Screen Time New Zealand, which is the production company that actually created Lego Masters in New Zealand. And they sent an email just out of the blue. And I thought at first that it was my LCP, my Lego Certified Professional mates, just winding me up. I thought it was a prank.
They were pranking you?
Good one. I thought it was Ryan, Brickman Ryan, just winding me up. So I didn't even
funny.
respond in it for a couple of days. And then I'm my old career is IT. So I dug into the email, thought it's pretty tough to spoof some of this stuff. So maybe it's legit. So I responded. And of course, then it went from there. And yeah, very quickly, it became a thing that we should make this happen. And everyone was excited and we got busy right away. So that's how it kind of happened. And yeah.
So they reached out to you. And did they have like an interview process, and did they have like a screening for you? And I mean, did you have to like go for an audition, or
no?
Did they just say you're the first one, you're in?
There's enough. Well, they'd looked at what was possible. Of course, they could have used Ryan. It would have made more sense in a lot of ways logistically. He's just in Australia. His studio and his Lego people, his builders, they're all relatively local. I mean, it is Australia and it's 2,500 kilometers away, but it's a lot closer than Canada or anywhere else. So, but they didn't want an Aussie. Kiwis kind of like to do their own thing. So they had to go further afield.
Tell me that, isn't it?
Yeah, Rob knows exactly what I'm talking about.
The only day they get along is on Anzac Day, right?
Yeah, I mean, they get along, but you know, the Kiwi-Aussie relationship has a lot of similarities to the Canada-US relationship. I'll just leave it at that. Big brother. But no, it was. They'd seen enough of my stuff online. Got lots of documentaries and interviews and news stuff and whatnot. They were happy with what they saw already. So essentially, if I said yes, I was in. And I definitely said yes because this was back in May of last year. And in Canada, we were in full lockdown mode. So there was no work happening. I was doing Zoom stuff with some groups and classes of school and stuff, but even school was mostly locked down. So I was down to 5-10% of my usual work volume. So it was just sitting around and wait. So I said, yes, please. Absolutely. We'll come down. And I knew it was going to be a long time with pre-production and then shooting the show. So my wife wasn't working either. So I said, let's just both go. And so we did. So we got here in late September of last year, and we don't go home until for a couple weeks now. We fly back to Canada. So we'll have been here 11 months.
Wow.
And like Rob,
awesome
we've also fallen in love
though.
with the country for sure.
How cool is that? It's like, I just was on a TV show for, well, longer than 9 weeks, but the whole length of the show, plus you had to build all of those sets, and then you got a chance to tour the country afterwards, and you made all these friends going to brick shows. What a great experience.
We would have been back months ago, but yeah, after having been here, and production is very intense, not a lot of time to get away, plus lockdown and things like that. Once it freed up, it was like, yeah, we have to stay here and explore this country. So we just got back a couple of days ago from 2 months on the South Island, and just touring around, seeing things. We've seen probably more than most Kiwis have seen of
Lake
their own country.
And
it's amazing.
The first thing they say to you when you go to the South Island, they say, "Welcome to the mainland."
Mainland, correct. That's the mainland. Yeah.
Oh boy,
that's awesome. And hello, Brickaroo Bonsai. Aloha,
Hawaii. But yeah, your initial story is similar to many people that have been on Lego Masters, where the initial contact, the response is this a joke? Come on, this has to be a joke, right? It's too good to be true. And then, no, it's not a joke. So that's really cool that they headhunted you, basically.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, so let's take a look at a few of the reasons why they headhunted you, which is these massive builds that you built for the show. And this one is from episode 1. So
the idea there was to essentially create a nice cohesive build. The finished builds, I'm sure you got pictures of that too, but trying to get a feel for representing sort of the urban, some of the urban landmarks and quirky things about that New Zealanders would recognize. So this doesn't look like much to the average American or Canadian, but every Kiwi knows what all of those little things are. even the balloon is reminiscent of a balloon that flies over the Canterbury Plains, and you can get a nice early morning champagne breakfast flight if you want in that balloon. So, and my sig fig is in the basket of the balloon. So that was my exposure. Yes, you don't see it in there, but it is in there.
That's a little
we can see something
that we wouldn't have
known.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
But this was, so one of the things I had to do coming to New Zealand, of course, I was quite nervous because I didn't have a studio here. I don't really know a lot of people. I know a few builders, but not really that closely. I have no bricks here. I have no idea what the set's going to be like and what the studio is going to be like, what the brick pit and our brick area is going to be like. And so there was a lot of unknowns. But luckily, again, it's a fantastic AFOL community here. I connected with some local builders in Auckland here. And what you see there is 90% of their creativity. I created a footprint and sort of mocked up some heights and things like that. These are the things that we want to have. And we talked a bit more about what the pieces should be, but and then the guys basically built it. So checking in with me, how's the colors, how's the height, what about this detail, and I would make suggestions for certain window shapes and maybe how to do the stained glass and all this sort of stuff. And then that was where they came up with it. There is lighting in there. That Christchurch Cathedral is the thing we're looking right in front of us, and that rose window is very famous, all full of 1x plate, trans plate behind it and lit from behind. The lighthouse flashed, and then the beehive next to it. That's the country's parliament in Wellington. Very round building, very tough to build. That was also lit up from within. So we had lots of fun with that one, and the teams built on those little quasi island shapes, and it turned out into really gorgeous build that first episode.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, Rob, do you recognize these landmarks here?
I do indeed. Yes, the obviously the Sky Tower, which I can see from my house, or the top of it anyway, and so we watch it every New Year's Eve when it lets off all the fireworks without going out. The balloon, yes, I've heard about that. The Christchurch Cathedral. Well, it doesn't quite look like that at the moment.
Doesn't look like that anymore.
No, but I was there before the earthquake.
That's right.
Now, there was a set of buildings.
Rob, you recognize the Ohakuni carrot there?
Yes. Our first episode, that was Kingy Biddle was our guest, and he went through some of those landmarks. And there were a couple buildings, though, that we didn't recognize, and that's why we wanted to also ask you about that.
There was also a dog, I think.
So that in a town called Tirau, in the middle of the North Island, there's these giant corrugated tin, a dog and a ram and a sheep. It's part of the tourist information center. I drove by it again on our way home a couple days ago. But New Zealand has all these kitschy things like that. So there's a L&P soda is a soda pop that you can get here. There's a giant L&P bottle. There's a giant gumboot that's I can't remember the town, but everything. There's all kinds of weird giant stuff. Just every town's got their own little claim to fame.
It's typical of New Zealand. Throughout the rural areas, you'll often find weird things hanging up, gumboots hanging on fences.
Yeah,
collected, and you think, what the heck? I have seen certain parts of New Zealand where they've got braziers hanging on fences.
Oh, just randomly, or does
I think it's trying to sort of stand out a little more in a rural setting.
There was down in the Catlins in the South Island. We went through this little town. I think it's called Owaka, and a whole yard and a completely area is full of teapots.
Yes,
it's incredibly. Cool. It's really creepy, actually. But we had to stop and take a picture, nonetheless.
Wow.
Anyway, so that was episode 1, and that was probably a couple hundred hours of building. Very detailed, and a lot of fun, though. I know the boys, Mark Hackett here and JP Hansen, John Paul Hansen. Those are the two builders that contributed to that. And boy, they did great work, and they were a super help all the way through the show. it's typical. All these shows, even the U.S., of course, Nathan Sueya is the LCP behind the U.S. show, but he's got builders that help him build behind the scenes as well. It's necessary on all of the Lego Masters shows all over the world, and we had good builders here.
That's a good insight, because they don't, I mean, the way they edited the show, they made it sound like you did the whole thing.
I know, and I recorded lines giving credit to the boys, but it didn't make the edit. So any chance I get, I throw some love out their way, because they're great builders. Look up JP.
It's here on the Brickanista Broadcast Network. You heard it here.
So JP is probably the most well-known of those builders. If you've seen his sort of giant Muppet characters, if you've seen these beautiful Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker and Gonzo.
I think I have seen his.
Yeah, that's JP. And he's really good sculptor, really good sculptor builder. And it was a pleasure to have him on the show. Yeah, the balloon was all me. I can say that. The balloon was 100% me, hand painted in studio.
Hand painted? It was all white Lego, and then you just painted it?
I did. I sculpted it first, and then I hand painted pixel by pixel, and then poor Mark had to actually build it from my design. He still hasn't forgiven me.
It's gorgeous. It really is amazing. Now, somebody had mentioned that there were some buildings we couldn't recognize. That's why. Do you have that visual, Remy?
I just have this one.
Oh, okay.
They didn't really give us
too
many angles around the other side of this.
Yeah. So what we're seeing, the three big anchors, of course, the Sky Tower in Auckland here in the middle, tallest structure in the Southern Hemisphere, by the way. Christchurch Cathedral is the front, the two front buildings there. The thing that's behind, that's sort of the nougat, both that tower and also on the other side of Christchurch Tower there. That thing there, that's one part of one building, and that's also here in Auckland. It's the Ferry Building, and Rob would recognize that.
That's what we didn't recognize. Okay.
You'd see that from across the way. It's very, very obvious from the harbor side of the Auckland skyline. And then the funny looking thing behind the carrot is
the beehive,
the beehive, which is the fun name for the New Zealand Parliament in Wellington. And then that you can only see a bit of it, that white thing above the beehive.
Dunedin?
That's not part of the beehive, that's behind it. And it's actually the water tower, the old water tower in Invercargill, which is way down south on the South Island. It's a beautiful. It's what?
Do you mean the mainland?
Yeah, on the mainland. Yes. And then there's a lighthouse there on the lower left, and that is way up near the top of the North Island in Cape Reinga, and got a chance to visit there as well. And beautiful lighthouses in this country as well.
Oh yeah.
And then there's bits and pieces like the T-Row dog is just stuck on a building back there, I think in front of the Ferry Building.
Yeah.
Right.
And the carrot.
And didn't you have the Dunedin train station too? I think I seem to remember that. Or was
what you're probably thinking of the Ferry Building is probably what you're thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. It makes me want to go back to New Zealand.
But we just, of course, these things don't exist this way in real life, all mashed together. But we just made this mashup ferry terminal kind of dockside thing to give some context to the first episode. And then, of course, I can't go without mentioning the lovely clouds up top as well, which they just looked really well and set things off.
Oh, Shell.
Totally stole that idea from Ryan's team in Australia. But our clouds were different, but yeah, the suspended clouds were lovely, so we had to do that.
Amazing. Thank you for all that backstory.
Yeah. And moving on to something not as detailed but still very imposing and impressive is this dice build. So I was curious about the internal structure of these dice.
We're way down in New Zealand. Rob can attest to this. Things take a long time to get to New Zealand. So you can't just order on Amazon and 2 days later it's on your doorstep. And certainly, and if it's Lego bricks coming from Europe, you're looking at a 2 month, 6 weeks to 2 month lead time. So we had to figure out what was going to happen to the show a long time before we actually started shooting. because we had to get the bricks and then we had to build the stuff. One of the things I suggested to save time and honestly money as well, funds, was Duplo. As you know, if anyone looks at my website, most of the stuff on there, I don't post a lot of the private commissions, but I post a lot of these giant Duplo builds that I do in public, whether it's dogs or castles or bumper cars or chainsaws or whatever it happens to be. So I pitched the idea for episodes for set decoration. Instead of using system brick, let's use Duplo, and ran that by the Lego company and made sure that they understood that was going to be okay and got the permission there. So this is a case where these are actually Duplo builds, and they are relatively a few layers of 2x8s, and I think just 2x8s actually, 2x8 interwoven for the bottom few layers in behind the white, and then essentially hollow inside, and then a network of weaved ones on the top to hold up the top. Duplo is surprisingly resilient and structurally fine. Those are not connected, so we literally put the first one in place, got people under the corners, and lifted up the second one and popped it on and set it down. So they're not glued. These bricks went into other pre-builds later on, or were designed to anyway. And yeah, so we'll probably use them in future seasons as well for more pre-builds.
No, that's a great idea, using Duplo. Yeah,
go
ahead,
we
Rob.
need to have a Duplo episode too.
I agree. Lego doesn't like to put Duplo and system brick in the same builds, just because they don't want small children to have access to the tiny parts, just for safety wise. So I had to get special dispensation and make sure it was very clear that the contestants did not have access to the Duplo bricks. So there was no Duplo bricks in the brick pit, just for set decoration. But I knew, and as you can see, it really pops on camera, and it takes a lot to fill up a huge studio, and a bunch of Duplo does the trick really well. So we were all really happy with the results of the few Duplo builds that we did.
Real quick, welcome Andre. Welcome to the stream. And now, Rob, you had a question, right?
Yes, I do, actually. I was going to ask, where's the cup?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Robin.
Where's the cup? Where's the dice
cup? The cup?
You know, the dice
you
cup.
Put the dice into to shake it.
Yeah, it's outside the studio. We couldn't bring it in. It's too big.
Oh, of course. Fair enough.
They rolled it once, then it was a lawsuit. So
that's right. Yeah. And one die landed on the other one. So yeah. And there was, of course, many puns involved, because Americans won't know this, but that host on the side there, his name is Di. Right. D-A-I, Di Henwood. He's a commentator and presenter here in Australia. Super funny guy. We got on great. We had a great time with it. But lots of Di jokes on this episode.
Lots of jokes died.
See, all this inside info. This is great.
Yeah. And now, finally, I want to look at the one for this episode, which is this giant sea serpent. It's amazing.
Yes.
Now, this is also Duplo, or
100% Duplo?
Wow.
When we started this, this was for the Above and Below episode, and the idea was going to have to build a monster or some creature of some sort, and with its above environment and its lair underneath. And so in New Zealand here, looking at Maori culture, there is a concept, and very much a reality for many Maori, the idea of what's called a Tanifa. And a Tanifa is kind of a spirit guardian, often manifests as a serpent or a dragon, that type of a thing. So originally this was supposed to be a Tanifa, or a representation of a Tanifa, but they've downplayed that in the show in the end. And so it just became this kind of fantastical sea serpent kind of a thing. But yeah, it's all Duplo. Again, I designed this in actually Brick Builder, which is the Lego company's 3D sculpting or rendering tool. But again, hand painted. So the shaping was done, did some things with the bricks, and then I went in and hand painted everything. And then Brick Builder lets you kind of show layers of the build, and then you just make sure the perimeter is the right colors. And so again, my builders built it layer by layer going up. And
awesome.
it's a tricky way to build, but it lets me design on virtually, and then lets the builders actually render the design. So that was a ton of fun. Looked fantastic in person, looked great on screen. Super happy with it.
Yeah, that's just incredible. And it's great to have the that background of what the creature actually is as well. You know.
Yeah, because it's not a snake, it's not a dragon, but it's kind of this sea serpent. If you look up Tanifa is in New Zealand in Maori, the F sound is represented with WH. So TANIWHA, Tanifa. And you'll get pictures of similar looking creatures. Yeah.
That's true, yes. That comes of the rumor is that the Maori written language was translated and written by a Frenchman.
Really?
So I'm told, yes.
Wow.
He did a marvelous job, but the little quirks, and especially with being English, the language, it makes you smile at times.
Yes.
There's no F in Te Reo, the Maori language or languages, but there is the WH, which is pronounced the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's really cool.
So you will have seen lots of Maori and Te Reo influences and Kiwiana type things that we put in the show. Tried to explain them as a little bit at the same time, and there is a chance that the show will be released, for streaming internationally, and they'll edit it a bit to make it a little less Kiwi specific. But yeah, we try to do as much as we can. So, for example, my title Brickmaster on the show roughly translates to Matanga Pereki. So Matanga is kind of master or elder in Te Reo Maori language, and Pereki is brick. So that's Matanga Pereki. You'll hear Dai talking about that, or the contestants sometimes.
Actually, recently you were in Gisborne with Jono, and he referred to you as that in his post.
Yeah. And that's just simply Brickmaster.
Yeah, I think Dai also begins the episode saying that every time.
And he'd usually say both. He would say, so Matanga Pereki, Brickmaster, what do you think of this, or whatever. So he'll usually say both, but yeah.
That's something that's got a bit political at the moment.
It is everywhere, right? So it's difficult to get cultures to mesh, but we tried to be as honoring as we could without being appropriating. And I think from what I've heard from all sides, it seemed to have done it quite well, and it was great to incorporate a lot of those things into the show.
Yeah.
Well, this is also something that they do in Canada as well, correct? Where they have the French name and the English name for certain places, and so
that's in Quebec, isn't it?
Yeah, and elsewhere as well. Even in on the West Coast, we've got the Indigenous people, and a lot of now we actually have some Indigenous names for places, which the English names are usually a really bastardized, destroyed version of the original Indigenous name. It's a bit odd in Western Canada because the written there's a lot of different tribes and clans and groups of Indigenous people in the West Coast, but the language that they've kind of gone with for written includes symbols like exclamation marks, triangles, numbers like the number 7. So a place name will have these symbols in it, and I have no idea how to pronounce them. Most people don't, but it's cool to recognize it. It's neat to see that stuff. And really when you hear the pronunciation, you go, "Oh, that's where Squamish came from." The word, but it was something completely different, and some poor colonial sailor had to pronounce it and say, "It sort of sounds like Squamish. That's what we'll call this place." So.
And speaking of Canada, you're in Vancouver, is that right? Or
yes, live just out in Abbotsford, just outside of Vancouver is where we live. Yeah.
Okay, so you're like 3 hours north of me in Seattle.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, on a good day. Abbey Lug is our
if you can get through the border.
Assuming the border's open, which it seems like it's wide open now. It was closed when we left, completely locked down. But yeah, Abbey Lug is the is our local lug, and of course the VLC Vancouver Lego Club just down the road. A lot of cross pollination between the two clubs, and
Oh, cool.
Seattle recently reduced its population by 4 people when my godson moved out from Seattle to New Zealand.
New Zealand claims another one, huh?
Oh, yes. We claim lots of things over here.
There's a lot of pull, I have to say. My wife and I have looked into what the possibilities might be. But it's, I mean, Rob will attest, cost of living here, it's up there.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Everything costs way more. Everything across the board.
Yeah, that's very true. That comes down basically to 1, distance, but 2, principally a small population.
Yeah,
you have to deal with such things.
But you know what? It's worth it. It's worth it.
Oh, absolutely. You just have to cancel some of the coffees you drink.
Yeah. Oh, the coffee. Don't get me started on the coffee. This place knows how to do coffee.
Flat whites. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is where we could fall out. There's only one coffee. There's only one coffee you can drink, and that's instant.
Oh.
Now I've got you all going, right?
I'm surprised they let you stay, Rob. I'm surprised they even let you stay.
We could put you into the green room.
There's literally a world-class coffee shop on almost every corner, and I'm not even exaggerating. There's probably 5,000 coffee shops in I'm sure there's 1,000, 1,500 in Auckland. I would
I'm sure they're right. I'm sure you're right.
I never drink coffee. Maybe I'll have to try some if I ever get there. Doc Sampson in the chat.
Doc Sampson's in the house.
Coffee.
Oh,
Doc Sampson. All right, so we got one for instant coffee.
I do like instant coffee when you're making iced drinks because then you don't have to brew it and then chill it. And
this is like people who say I don't like beer. There is a huge spectrum of coffees of what you can try.
That's true.
You may have had a lot of bad ones, but when it's done right.
All right. Well, we could go back and forth.
Let's leave that alone.
Yes. Let's all come together and enjoy the Smudge Minute.
Yes, the Smudge Minute. We need the Smudge Minute.
Here's our favorite guest host for Lego Masters, Smudge. There she is. So what was it like having her on set, just around?
So people sometimes wonder if that was all pre-planned and all of this stuff was all figured out and the whole moment was done, was kind of scripted. Absolutely not. Dan and Jono both have been very open about their struggles with mental health issues, PTSD, anxiety, depression. And the show didn't shy away from that. It didn't exploit it, but it just kind of laid it out. I felt it was a very sensitive portrayal of it. Dan thought he would be fine, the weeks away from his support network, his family, his whānau, and his support dog. He didn't really realize how much he relied on his support network until he was away from it. So early on, we were about 2.5 weeks into filming in episode 3, and he said, he was melting down, and it was like, I don't think I can go on. And so the show quickly mobilized, and Dan lives near Wellington, which is about an 8-hour drive away. But they made it work and got Smudge to come up. Smudge became the 3rd member of the team, the first 8-legged Lego Masters team.
You can see here's Smudge assisting with the below build here.
Yes.
That's correct. So Smudge got a little buff, and I quickly whipped up a Duplo bed.
Yeah,
Smudge had a little Duplo bed. You can see the edge of it there in the photo.
Oh, it's Duplo too.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. The bed is just adorable. So yeah, it was great the way the crew embraced her as well. And
Smudge was a lovely dog. I actually saw Dan again just a few days ago, coming north again from the South Island, and got a little bit of Smudge time. Smudge is wonderful. And it's funny because, of course, in the show, we were in the height of COVID here, lockdown. So when the contestants were on the show, we didn't put them up in a hotel. That would have been so much contact with strangers and staff and stuff. So we actually put them up into Airbnbs, into houses. So they were somewhat isolated. And Jono and Dan and Glenn and Jake shared a house. So the four of the guys were in that house. Of course, Smudge lived there as well. And you'll notice in some episodes, especially towards the end, where Glenn, Smudge, he calls Smudge over and Smudge just trots over and jumps right into his arms. It's because they live together. So I mean, they were with each other in the off hours all the time. And so Smudge and Glenn were the best of friends.
We heard about that too from is it Andrew and Georgie, that they were talking about how this Glenn had this moment with Smudge. They had a relationship.
Yeah. And it was often the case. I mean, Smudge would wander around. Of course, I had my Smudge moments too, but not nearly the amount of time that that Glenn and Jake would have spent with Smudge, along with Jono and Dan. So they were great friends.
No, but I really like this shot from the episode, because this is the point in the episode where they're trying to shore up their build on the bottom here. And Jono has gone to the brick pit. He said, "Here, hold this. I'll go to the brick pit. I'll get some bricks." You know, and Smudge kind of inserts herself between Dan and his arms while he's trying to hold this thing up.
Yep. Well, normally it's all of us that have pets. When you get down on the ground, the pets just assume that's their time, so they just get in there. Whether you're doing yoga or you're doing push-ups or you're just trying to fix your car, I mean, your pet's going to try and get in there and get some love, and Smudge was no exception to that.
All right, well then. Yeah, and then here she is, you know, in the brick pit and all that. So yeah, that's our Smudge minute.
She was an awesome addition, and I think Dan mentioned it's the only time a dog has been on in the 13 countries and 20 seasons, I guess, or seasons that this show has been on. So it's
there was a lot of firsts on this show for sure.
So here's I guess now we can talk about the episode a little bit. This was the above and below challenge for our viewers at home that haven't seen it, and this was a 12-hour challenge, and there were 2 spots up for grabs in the finals, and you had to build a supernatural creature with a lair that would connect above and below these building surfaces. And you can see here, you know, you can still see the Tanifa. Did I pronounce that correct? Tanifa in the background here.
The lighting of this show was amazing too.
Here are the build surfaces, and this is this 96 by 96? Is that?
Oh my goodness! No, it's not. The building of the tables had proceeded before I came on and got involved with it. So builders like nice round numbers. So the tables were 800 millimeters by 800 millimeters, which is not 96 studs, nice round Lego base plate numbers. It's 100 studs. So yes, we had to cut base plates and glue them on and things like that. So there are 100 base plates by 100 base plates. I mean, 100 studs by
100 by 100. Okay, still a massive area to cover.
Big area.
Yeah.
And on the previous picture, we had Technic bricks glued on underneath, so lots of anchor points to connect to.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was also what I was wondering, if they were glued on or not.
Yeah, absolutely. We want good builds. We don't want them to fail. Yeah, here you can see, we look on the front, you can see in the middle on the front panel, you can see there's
you can see there's the 4 studs. There they are. You can see the seams. Wow. All right, so that's interesting. But there was also a mini challenge before this. In this kind of box here, there was the Fiat. And sorry, I just going to talk about this one more time. The back of this is so great. Like these details back here. Just really amazing. So yeah, the challenge was to capture the essence of the official Lego Fiat model, and they only had an hour for this. And let's see, this was Andrew and Georgie's build. They built a like the Fiat logo inside a pizza, and a glass and a flag here.
Glass of coffee. They had the Fiat logo as a pizza. They had a checkered picnic blanket. That's nice. It's a nice build.
Yeah, this was cute. Here you can see some details of the toppings. And then this was Sarah and Emily's, their little Italian man, using the parts from the Fiat in the model. Here you can see the tires, and I really love this hair design because it was attached with strings.
Yeah. Yeah, they used the colors, they used the tires, there's the steering wheels, the little luggage container, the suitcase. They had a lot. It was a small build, but it did a lot of connections with the Fiat, with the car, which was the brief. The brief was make a connection, somehow referencing the car and capture the essence of that car, because there wasn't all the pieces needed to build the car in the brick pit. So we knew they couldn't duplicate the car.
Right.
So it became an essence challenge.
And look who's in the chat. Mr. Evo and Zed is in the house.
Welcome.
Hello, Glenn.
He built a cat.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually two Glens are in the house. Glenn Copeland's in the house too.
Yeah. And sorry, I just love the shot because they also included the bald spot on the other side. I just thought that was very funny personally. And then Dan and Jono built like a whole giant picnic spread, like this amazing picnic.
I believe it's called a
build. I mean, I told them off camera. I said, "This is an amazing build, but it's an Italian build. It doesn't reference the car, and that was it. I said it misses the brief because it doesn't directly tie in the car somehow. And
good point.
Yeah. And that was it. So, but look at the output when Jono and Dan would build and really be ticking with each other. Man, they could go. And really, really incredible looking piece.
All the different shapes too, with the knife and then the cheese wedges and
the bottle
and the not wine.
The wine,
the not wine,
sparkling water.
The water, it's water. But yeah, Sarah and Emily won the challenge, and because their little Fiat guy was amazing, and this was their advantage. They got a creeper to use to build, which was just a very amazing advantage. I thought that was,
and their original thought was, that's funny, it's cute, and everything. At the end, as you see on the show, Sarah was like, "This thing is amazing. Can I take it home?"
They used it a lot, definitely. So before we move on, I just wanted to say goodbye to everybody because I have to leave for a board meeting I have to go to. But I wanted to thank both Rob and Robin. Thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you everybody in the chat who's hanging out. I will be leaving, but the show will be continuing. And thank you so much. And I will see you next week because we have the finals. And since Mr. Evo and Zed is in the house, he will be one of our guests along with Jake. So
thank you very much.
We'll see you. Take care.
All right.
Cool.
See you,
Bye.
Bye, Naomi.
See you at BrickCon.
Yeah. So this was a great advantage. And Glenn and Jake were also just in the episode hanging out. These were their sig figs here. So they were there in spirit.
So they got the day off. They were there at the intro of the show to basically so that we could say, "Take off, guys. You're not building this challenge." So I think they went out to the beach. I think they went out to Piha, which is a beautiful west coast beach near Auckland, and they had a great time.
Oh, that's cool. Was there any discussion?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Sorry, what about the beach?
They would have had a great time this time of the year because the rollers are coming right across the Indian Ocean.
It's a big time surfing beach.
Yeah.
And this would have been February. So it was still gorgeous summer weather.
No, that's cool. And there wasn't any discussion of, hey, we want to build anyway, or
they absolutely, I think Glenn can maybe chime in, but I'm pretty sure they would have loved to build, and I had lots of ideas for this challenge. But yeah, the way the show was structured, it wasn't going to happen. They wanted to just have the 3 and then have them come in afterwards.
Well, that's okay. I really like how they captured his necklace here on the sig fig.
Yeah, it's called a punamu, and
Punamu. I can never remember the term for it.
I should have mine on, but the teams gave Di and I each a punamu. It's greenstone, it's jade basically, and there's a whole lot of significance behind it. The biggest being you cannot go and buy your own punamu. It has to be blessed and given to you for some reason and some sort of meaning behind it. So it was incredibly emotional to have those given to us. And I generally wear it all the time. Here, my wife is giving me here. So this is mine here. So it's kind of similar to Glenn's.
Let's see it. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we discussed
it.
Yeah, but that's really special. That's cool. And yeah, Mr. Yvonne says, we would love to build in this one. We're planning on trying the challenge at home sometime. Well, we will look forward to that. But yeah, let's get into it. Oh, and yes, this is here. Di also, I think he just had to announce that there were 4 hours left or something, and instead of that, he decided to get some bricks, and here he is, just accidentally just.
It was all. Of course, it was all planned. Everything was done. The camera's in the right spot. It was always expect the unexpected on the show. But when he did it, it looked so realistic. The camera guys came out from behind and like, "Are you okay?" And of course, it was all just him being a professional. And he's just so good at the pratfall. It looked so good.
It was
Georgie was terrified. Right behind her, it happened. You can see on that last photo, and so she was absolutely traumatized by that. Don't ever
Georgie
do that.
Reactions. Yeah. Well, let's see. Okay, so now the first build that they showed in the series was the Weather Monster, and this was Sarah and Emily's. And here it is. This lovely kind of serpent here above the clouds, taking care of its babies, and then below it was eating airplanes. So
there was a requirement in the brief to have movement on the top surface as a minimum and lighting on the underside as a minimum. And all the teams met that brief, and most did even more past that.
Right. This it's hard to see with these still shots, but you can see parts of the lightning bolt would like kind of go on and off. And also in the interior of this airplane, there was a red emergency light. That was also a fun touch. But I personally, I loved like large creature builds. They're one of my favorite Lego things. So I really enjoyed this challenge and this creature in general.
It's amazing stuff when you.
It was very the monster the monster on this build was very clear. It definitely inhabited the entire build. You can follow the coils going up and down through the clouds. It made sense in the build. So it was really, really stunning. And like I said, the lightning flashed, the red lights. They had this thing called a probe cam. It's basically just a long tube with a camera on the end. And you'll see it in the show and in the promo shots. They put that probe cam right down the aisle of the jetliner, and they put figs in there with scared faces all the way down. So it's a great shot.
I think I have a shot of that later, but yeah, here's all these little baby creatures, and I think these are their sig figs here in the corner.
Yes, I think they stuck those on there. I don't remember the context, but I think that's what they are. Yeah.
It looks like they may be trying to escape.
Could be,
but
somehow floating in the air, though, which is kind of weird.
Hey,
this was one of the downfalls of this build is that it just ended up being a bit square. all that white. And if you look at the layer there where the babies are, it's just a white box. There's no real life in there, but still really, really amazing.
Yeah, you can see it's just these like little eggs here. But yeah, and this I forget which tail was kind of spinning around.
Yeah, it was actual tails. The one you're pointing to there, it actually was rotating.
Yeah. Kind of rotating around.
And that was their motion. There you go. There's your
here's our here's this, and you can see all the characters are quite afraid of being devoured here at 30,000 feet. And here's kind of a top shot.
Yeah.
I was trying to follow the coils, and I guess it's harder to do if you're not there in person. All these coils
they did make sense. There was a connection point in the right spots for every coil.
Yeah, that's really cool. So let's see. Oh yeah, I guess that's all the shots I have of this. But yeah, I like how they tried to put some yellow in here and give it some background with the sun. Just to kind of break up the white a little bit.
Yeah.
But still, just an amazing amount of bricks for 12 hours.
Great storytellers, Emily and Sarah, and they're all about color and storytelling, and all their builds showed that.
Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so next we have Trent the Trog Goblin, and this was Dan and Jono's build. And we saw a little bit of this earlier where the bottom half didn't quite connect the first time, but they were able to get it sorted out. So that was really good. And I really like all the details in the room up here. Here we can see the goblin. And in the back you have the picture frame and the table with food on it. And this fireplace here has all sorts of just little touches that it looks lived in, as much as a goblin can live in his little log cabin there.
Yeah, and so for this one, again, he was front and center, the goblin. The arms moved up and down, and he's falling through the floor. And they were really the only team that did a really fun job of the painting the front panel and really showing sort of the joists in the floor, and the minifigs are been undermining the floor, and that's why Trent has dropped through the floor. Yeah, so it's a nice tie-in.
And I think they also mentioned they wanted the legs to kind of kick a little bit, but they didn't have time to complete that motion, which is unfortunate. But we can just imagine that he's kicking his legs. And let's see, what other shots do we have here? This is the cage full of minifigures that have, the cage is broken open and the minifigures are all escaping.
We don't know what's happening to them, what Trent is doing to them, and that's kind of fun. They had like tubs of goo, they had all kinds of cages. We don't know exactly what nefarious purposes are happening to the poor minifigs, but it adds to the mystique of what's going on, and all the little touches in Trent's above ground thing, the photo, the TV, all the little bits, and down here, everything has a purpose. Nothing's out of place. It just worked really well.
Yes, this is some kind of laboratory.
Yeah.
And I think above here, I love this. Well, he's watching Lord of the Rings or something on the television, which I thought was great. And I love the portrait as well.
Yeah, probably a photo of his mom or somebody else.
It humanizes him, that he's got a family. It's
exactly.
But yeah, I couldn't figure out what this is, but it does look like it's doing something.
And it didn't use them for the purposes of a magnet, but you can see those magnet pieces are there. We had them in the brick pit. They only got used a couple times, but down in that one, you're just pointing at them now. The yellow thing and the gray thing at the bottom left there. Those are magnet pieces. Yeah.
Magnet pieces. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. The bottom one and the yellow thing and the gray thing below it, those are each one piece, and they're just a north and south magnet.
Oh wow, that's awesome! I had no idea they had access to that in the brick pit.
I added it in, so I added about 100,000 bricks to the brick pit that were not in the original allotment of bricks. And those magnets were one of the ones I added in there. Other things were like sheep. There was no sheep. You're in New Zealand, you have to have sheep. So I added a couple hundred sheep into the brick pit and a bunch of other parts that had come out just subsequent to the brick pit allocation being finalized. So the shows generally get a similar thing, and then you can choose to add more. So that's what we added.
No, that's really cool. I had no idea, but yeah, good show. But yeah, any final thoughts on this lovely troll build here?
It was gorgeous.
I love this chimney too. Yeah,
the chimney was nice. Now the back side of it was just plain brown. Kind of referred to it as a bit of a poo emoji. There was out the other side, looking from the back, you don't see any shots here, but it was not much going on there, and that would have been nice to see a little bit more life on that side. But because they did have that crash, they lost a little bit of time, and they just didn't have time to do anything back there. So it was really, this view was the one to look at.
Yeah, and you can kind of see the arm kind of moves back and forth, and it's
it kind of flapped all the way back and all the way forward, like it was trying to swat minifigures.
All right, so our last build is Andrew and Georgie's monster train, and here it is. You can see they kind of built it on an angle here. Not sure why Dan and Jono are in the back here. But that's okay.
While we're shooting, talking to the teams, all the other teams are still in there. So they just stand and watch and listen and chat quietly with each other, trying to figure out, well, that was feedback was such and such. Where does that put us? Trying to gather whatever hints they can from what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think Emily and Sarah even say in this episode, like, you can't read Brickman at all. Like, when he comes around and looks at your build, was that good? Was it bad? We don't know.
I found this one an interesting one, in as much as we don't yet have a tube train or underground, but I found it quite fascinating. Except they seem to be not connected. The two areas. It
was unclear. And number one, the only thing that made it a monster was just a couple of teeth in the bottom one in the front. It looked, if you didn't know what you were looking at, you would just think it was a train crash. Potentially, it was not anthropomorphized enough. And I suggested that again, for them it was going to be the same train. So this was going to be, when the train went underground, it became a monster, and then it ate the people inside of itself. So great idea, but we don't know it's the same train. So I suggested maybe make the top train about in the middle of changing, and so they added a few bricks. You can see it on that last one where you can see the end of the end of the train going into the tunnel on the top. I think one of your shots had it, but just see a little bit of stuff there. They tacked that on, but it wasn't really enough to sell that idea. Unbelievable, some really, really fun stuff in here though. In this image, you can see the technique of just stacking up the plates, but not all the way, to get that nice curve. And that was really nicely braced behind. It was structurally sound. And Georgie was really good at coming up with the fonts and stuff, and really just winging it. She didn't even really plan this out. It would just kind of happen. If you look off to the left there, ETU, they stumped us on that one. They said, what does that mean? I asked them, what does that mean? He says, you should know what that means. See if you can guess. If anyone can guess, see if you put it in the comments. ETU. It's relevant to the show. So once I figured it out, I didn't figure it out. I had to be told. They went, oh yeah, of course. But
well, I was
gonna guess.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Rob But I guess you guys don't have a subway in New Zealand.
No,
it's not necessarily referencing anything about the subway.
It could be a Latin word.
You do have underground trains. There's a train station underground downtown in the CBD, Central Business District here, but it rapidly comes above ground. But there is an underground station, so not technically a subway, but yeah. Anyway, ETU. You don't have to be an Aucklander or a train rider or a subway station person to know what that is.
Okay, put it in the chat. If nobody gets it, we're just going to have to wonder forever. So everyone start guessing.
We'll tell you at the end.
But yeah, there's so many like great details on this train station here on this platform.
So they had the elevator doors in that last image, or the platform doors opened and closed. That was their motorized function there.
Yeah, this was pretty neat. And then on the bottom
underneath they had lots of lighting, and then that little mechanic guy, that little guy in the front, right there, he was going around on a track. He was panicking and driving around on a track. So they had motion underground as well. And of course, the eyes of the monster were lit up as well.
Yeah, there they are.
Kind of eyes, but again, it was the windows above could have been eyes as well. So it was just kind of confusing. It didn't look as much like a monster as I think they wanted it to do.
Well, and I think these interior lights below the train were flickering. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Okay. Yeah. So the teams, we've supplied the teams with Spike Prime hubs, and didn't give them the opportunity to program the hubs, but working with some of the guys in Billund, actually Czech Republic, in Kladno, we wrote some programs, specific programs to do things like on-off, rotating motions, repetitive motions, flickering, all that sort of stuff. So they could set some quick parameters in their Prime hubs with the programs that we preloaded and accomplish a ton of stuff. And so that's what we did to kind of even the playing field there and give some fun stuff to be able to happen, but not really advantage teams that were really good at robotics and would have just out-programmed everybody.
No, that's really cool. Because as someone who has not programmed these things before, I would love to have access to those tools. So
yeah, and we had, Jake is a wizard with robotics and the programming. So everyone else would have had to spend hours and hours and hours just to begin to get up to speed, to be even remotely in the same ballpark. And we wanted to focus on the building as opposed to the motorizing, the automation, the programming and stuff. So we thought, let's give everyone an even playing field on that and see what they do with it. And they did some amazing stuff.
Okay. We've got some guesses coming in. Spot says Electric Train Union.
Nope.
No. Okay. How about Engulf the Universe?
I like that one. Incorrect.
Incorrect. Okay.
East Tamaki Underground.
Ooh.
Is that?
It's not right.
No, it's not right.
That'd be good. Tamaki that'd be right about right down in Auckland here. Tamaki is one of the roads that goes almost right by the station.
Okay, and then finally we have these worms up top. I thought at first it was the worm relating the story of the train to the grandchildren, but I guess not. So they were just cute worms.
It kind of is, and this is again a bit of the confusing bit, but it was essentially telling the story. I think it was mostly something to put in this huge brown triangle that they had on the build that they didn't really plan for. So again, that the angled station looks great and there's lots of wonderful detail, but you must plan to have something on the other area of your build. You can't leave half the board empty. So this was a bit of a last minute add, I think, and it didn't really add to it, in my opinion.
That's unfortunate. Glenn, sorry, I missed your guess. His guess is etu.nz, which is a website that I will not click on.
Yeah. It is not correct, but I'm not even sure what that is. Let's. It's a good guess. That's clever.
Here's final shot of the build, and yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of brown space here in the front.
You can imagine if the worms weren't there, it would just be kind of an empty lot. So there's a lot of things they could have done there, in my opinion, but they didn't. So
me and Naomi, we always like to talk about, oh, we would do this and that, knowing that, if we were there under pressure, there's no way we would do this and that.
I mean, so Glenn can attest, and I'm sure all the teams have said that. Yeah. They look back at it and they go, "Oh, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that?" Even at the night of when the episode's over, they're probably going, "Oh, we could have done that. Yeah. Oh, why didn't we?" Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, I do still enjoy this build, and here's a couple of shots of the technique that Georgie used to build this. So if you're looking to build that curved wall, getting this nice curve in this pattern. This is basically how you do it.
It's essentially, 3 plates in the back, and depending how much curve you want, three plates in back, 2 in front, or 2 in front, 1 in back. Technically, an illegal build. Technically, because you're straining the plates by having them not completely connected.
But looks beautiful. You can see it here. It is in progress from the other side, and there's the finished curve here. That is the end of our show, and this was the last elimination episode. For a show that only had really 3 eliminations, all of them hit pretty hard.
Yeah,
so it was sad to see. If you haven't seen the episode, spoiler alert, Andrew and Georgie did not make the final, unfortunately. But they gave us a ton of great builds along the way.
They did, and this was a tough elimination. It really came down to how well the monster was represented, which was the focal point, and what they did with the build in the terms of using the space that they had, and that big empty space with the worms, and the fact that their monster could have just been a train crash, and it wasn't clear that it was the 2 trains were the same monster. That was enough. It was a tiny bit of a difference, to eliminate them from the final. But no, it was not an easy one. Not an easy one for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone is wondering about ETU. A command to stand, probably.
That's what I thought it was. I was wrong. But what have I already said in this broadcast that you have to do on Lego Masters? What must you always do?
Oh God, I don't know. Now I'm never going to be on the show. I can't remember.
When Di came in and did his pratfall, his fake fall, was so realistic it fooled us all.
Debo said it. Expect the unexpected.
There it is. Debo has it. Expect the unexpected.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes. Good to know. This was a great episode. It's been a great season. I'm glad that those of us in America have been able to access it. Although I still wish we had our, Lego Masters international streaming service with all the shows in one place.
Completely agree.
Yeah, that's
I'm
my
pushing
dream.
for it. Internally, I'm pushing for it. Just know that. But there is not. That doesn't happen at this point. So you have to find ways to get a hold of the shows elsewhere. So.
Yes. And they have announced that they already renewed Lego Masters Aotearoa for season 2. Can you tell us anything about that? Are you and Di going to be back?
Correct. Yes. Season 2 is confirmed. Di and I will definitely be back. Super looking forward to it. I can't wait to see it all again. So great builders here, great people, good stories. The crew of the show, the producers and everyone are fantastic. So it's going to be, look for that. I'm not sure exactly when it will air, but it'll be sometime next year, hopefully.
Okay, awesome. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here, Rob.
Fascinating experience, I must admit.
Yes, because you also have Lego with your grandchildren, correct?
Oh yes, I've brought some out, some heavily.
As he disappears into the pathway.
Does it keep?
Well, look at that.
An aeroplane built by my one of my young grandsons.
Well, that's all it takes.
Didn't break them down. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a fantastic experience.
But yeah, let me make sure that I can do these. So here's Robin. You have Brickville on Facebook, correct?
Yeah,
me.
And then just Robin, my full name on Instagram.
Okay.
And you can do that. And brickville.ca if you want to go to the website. It's pretty old and outdated, but there's lots of fun eye candy on there to see.
Okay. And do you have any upcoming shows or other projects that you're working on?
There's a bunch of stuff as I go back to Canada in a couple of weeks. Already working on some new things. Can't really talk about much of them. I will be going down to BrickCon in Seattle, and not in any official capacity. I'm just hanging out because that's my my favorite closest con other than BrickCan. But yeah, I'll be there for sure. And
that's the one in October, is that correct?
In October, yeah. It's September 30th. It starts this year in Seattle. Yeah.
Okay.
And happy to chat with people. Yeah, answer questions, and looking forward to getting back to an in-person con. It's been great to do a couple of them here to see some public shows. Last time I was at a public show before that was Bricks Cascade in Portland in February of 2020. So it's been a long time since I was able to get together with AFOLs and see mocks and have some fun with that. So really looking forward to BrickCon.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to put it on the calendar. And now if you want to reach out to Rob, he's Rob Wightman on Facebook. And that's the only banner I see here. Is that correct, Rob?
That's the only one you have for me, yes.
Okay.
If you want to contact us, fine. And all I can say is thank you very much, guys. It's been, as I say, a pleasure and a very interesting exercise. Art and engineering mixing together.
Indeed.
It's all about.
Thanks, Rob.
But yeah, cheers. If you have anything to send to Naomi, here is her P.O. box. Feel free to use it. And as always, we are on the hunt for the elusive like and subscribe. So go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't already. And as they say on the Brickanista Broadcast Network, may the clutch be with you. Bye for now. Have a good night.